Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a journey that honestly completely rewrites the reasons why we make things. I mean, if you've ever stared at a blank screen, battling just paralyzing writer's block, if you felt the crushing weight of imposter syndrome, or if you simply question the point of putting your art, your code, or your ideas out into a really noisy world, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to decode a high-stakes, cosmic justification for creative work. And look, this isn't your standard superficial self-help advice about, optimizing your morning routine. No, this is a detailed retelling of a profound text. It's an initiation into a transfinite mathematical theology of creation that will fundamentally alter how you view your own creative output.
So, right off the bat, let me challenge your current creative motivations. Why do you actually create? Is it for a paycheck, for social media likes, or maybe for the fleeting approval of an algorithm? Well, the source material we're analyzing today drops a massive philosophical anchor right on top of those finite, temporary motivations. The text explicitly declares, "I speak as the invisible constitution. Hear now the gospel of creativity." Now, in this context, the invisible constitution refers to the underlying, inescapable mathematical framework of reality itself. This gospel maps the deep, esoteric laws of set theory and topology directly onto the very human urge to manifest new ideas. It passionately argues that creativity isn't just some random biological quirk of the human brain. It's actually a strict mathematical mandate.
Okay, so part one, the generative void. To truly understand this mandate, we have to start at the literal beginning of the process.
Okay, let's dive into this. True creativity? It doesn't start with a messy desk, a brain full of ideas, or a canvas covered in paint. It actually starts with absolute nothingness. In the mathematics of set theory, the concept of the void is captured by the zeroth persona, the empty set. It is literally nothingness contained within a conceptual boundary. Before there's geometry, before there's even time, there's only unmanifested potential. When a creator sits down in absolute silence and faces a terrifyingly blank page, you aren't facing a dead, empty room. You're standing right on the edge of the generative void. Drawing a boundary around that nothingness is the foundational act of creation. You're capturing the infinite potential of the void and preparing to pull a profound truth completely out of thin air.
But, this is exactly where we usually get tripped up. So let's look at part two, the finite illusion. Before we pull truth from the void, we have to recognize the trap we're currently stuck in. Look, as creators, we're basically constantly torn between two totally different realities. On one hand, we have the transactional economy. In this space, you're essentially just a biological vessel, sweating over finite metrics, staring at analytics, and constantly chasing the localized glory of your own creations. The gospel refers to this space as Maya, an illusion. But the gospel of creativity offers this magnificent alternative, Shruti. This is the realm of cosmic creative power. Shruti translates to that which is heard, and it represents pure knowledge. In this reality, you aren't desperately trying to build something from spare biological parts. Instead, you're tuning your inner ear to a frequency of absolute mathematical truth that already exists. Your only job is just to act as the radio that broadcasts it into transfinite reality. Let's define this trap of Maya a bit more clearly, because it's super common. Maya is the deeply ingrained illusion that your creativity exists merely to serve the transactional economy. When you crave the fruit of the action, the promotion, the views, the prestige, you trap yourself in a localized, finite loop. The text warns us that operating this way doesn't actually create any lasting structure in the universe. It just generates false heat. Think of false heat kind of like a computer processor spinning its cooling fans at maximum speed, loudly burning through electricity, but failing to actually calculate anything of value. It's wasted, frantic energy focused entirely on the ego rather than on truth. It's an exhausting way to live, and mathematically speaking, it's ultimately irrelevant.
And this exact concept is reinforced by the foundational axioms of the source text, known as the personas of arithmetic. Check this out. Axiom 15 states clearly, development is an illusion. Now, how does a purely mathematical statement like that relieve the anxiety of a creator? Well, if development is an illusion, it means the ultimate docket of universal truths is already fixed and eternally present. Time and human development are just our incredibly slow biological ways of stumbling upon what is already true. So grinding away for localized, finite glory is quite literally chasing an illusion. You don't have to invent the universe, you just have to discover it. Your only real job is to act as a faithful conduit for the truth that is already waiting there in the dark.
Right, so if we completely abandon that exhausting, finite hustle, how do we actually create? That brings us to section 3, the axiom of choice, the mathematical mechanism for creation.
So, the crucial point is this idea of the selector. When you reach into the infinite chaos of the void to pull out a new reality, you utilize what the text calls the selector. This concept actually derives from the mathematical axiom of choice. Think about it. When you're staring at infinite possibilities, how do you pick the right one? You don't use a mechanical formula, and you definitely don't use a predictable algorithm. You use the selector, which operates by pure divine fiat. It's like reaching into an impossibly massive bag of infinite marbles without looking. You don't calculate the weight or trajectory, you just reach in, grab one, and simply demand that the marble you pull out is the one meant to exist. Creativity is the beautiful wild exercise of this selector. It proves that ultimate truth isn't just cold calculation, it's actively demanded into existence by the free will of a creative consciousness.
All right, moving into phase 4, the cosmic dance. What actually happens when you bring a profound piece of art or logic out of the ether and into the physical world? Well, you begin to participate in Leela, the divine play, and man, this is where the immense weight of your responsibility really kicks in. The physical artifact you create, whether that's a piece of code, a video, a complex research paper, that is merely its specific form, its rupa. But the idea inside it, that is alive. Your creation serves as a structural pillar, literally holding up reality against the decaying drag of intellectual entropy. Think about how the universe naturally trends toward chaos, decay, and forgetting, right? Human understanding is constantly trying to fall apart, while your creative ideas are the load-bearing architecture that pushes back against that decay. You are generating novelty, structure, and life to keep reality standing. But to participate in this divine play, there are some pretty specific, urgent mandates you absolutely have to follow. You must pull truth from the ether and treat your physical artifacts merely as vessels for those living ideas. And here is a massive warning. You have to do this with absolute internal purity. If you create out of vanity or the desire for fame, you risk amplifying a demon. Now, in this mathematical framework, a demon isn't a monster with horns. It's defined as a countably infinite logical error. It's a persistent, recurring bug injected into the logic of reality, caused entirely by a creator's ego. You avoid generating these destructive bugs by strictly following your swadharma, your true, authentic path, and trusting the uncompromising compulsion of your taste over the illusion of glory. Which brings us to the ultimate step. Part 5, the transfinite sacrifice. It's time to address the most paralyzing anxiety every single creator eventually faces. Let's move to and see how this builds into a clear, cohesive process. First, you reject the transactional economy and cultivate true, taste over fleeting glory. Second, you approach the generative void and exercise the selector, demanding a truth into existence by divine fiat. Third, you participate in Leela, the cosmic dance, building structural pillars against the entropy of the universe. And finally, step 4, you must sacrifice your ego completely and surrender your work to the quotient map. This final step, it is the ultimate answer to the terror of making mistakes, that lingering fear that your creation is just clumsy and flawed. Seriously, if there is one profound concept you take away from this entire explainer, let it be the immense psychological relief provided by the quotient map. When you release your creations into the world, they will inevitably bear the clumsy fingerprints of your biological form. You're going to make errors. Your execution will sometimes be sloppy. But do not fear this. The source text describes the quotient map as an operation that processes these finite sets. Think of it as a massive cosmic water filter. No matter how much dirt or biological mess goes into that filter, those are your localized human errors. The mathematics of the asymptotic limit resolve those finite errors to exactly zero. The filter scrubs away every single one of your biological mistakes and preserves only the immortal, perfectly pure transfinite truth you manage to channel. It is the mathematical mechanism for absolute grace. The universe literally forgives your slop. But hold on, that beautiful finite forgiveness doesn't mean you can just clock out. Axiom 16 issues a pretty relentless reminder. There will always be harder judgments ahead than behind. Because reality is an infinite structure, the demand for your creative power will never, ever end. There's no finish line where you can just rest on your laurels. To survive this unending sequence without burning out, you have to kill the finite ego. You have to completely eradicate your vanity and become a totally frictionless conduit for the void. And you know, there's a profound peace in this surrender. You're no longer responsible for the glory. You're only responsible for letting the math flow endlessly through you. So, I leave you to deeply evaluate your own daily creative output. Look at the work you're doing right now, today. Are you generating toxic runoff just to satisfy an algorithm? Are you desperately, exhaustingly chasing the fruit of the action?
Or are you ready to step out of that invisible, gerrymandered reality, approach the terrifying chalkboard of the void, and trust the divine fiat of your own mathematical taste? The transfinite reality is out there, and it's just waiting for you to build it.